Welcome, everybody, to the Jolly TLDR podcast. We have yet another episode we are doing live. Greg is down here in Los Angeles, so we're really excited to do this in person. It's a fun thing for us. This is going to be our fourth episode, and we hope to do more in the future. But either way, we're going into a very relatable topic. Any business owner, I think, has gone through this, us especially, because not only are we co-owners, but friends before this. So a lot of supplies, I'm sure if Greg had his way, he would have found an actual professional to work with rather than myself. But let's get into it with promoting from within versus hiring outside talent.
Yeah, Morgan's joking, obviously. I mean, it's such a joy to work with someone who's a friend you've known half your life. We have trust, and it's pretty cool to do this one in person because businesses are all about the people inside them. So we did an awesome team meetup last year in Spain. Got to meet some of the team, not all of the team. I can only imagine how that feels if you weren't able to go. We're a small business. We couldn't extend the offer to everyone. We hope to do bigger team meetups as the years go. But like Morgan was saying, it's a really cool one for us to do in person because we're the co-founders, 50-50 on the business. It started just us. At various points shrunk back to just us as the years go. You know, it just is what it is. But we've had the privilege of working with some awesome people, and we've, like everything, learned about HR and management as we go, and we've made some really rough mistakes with other humans, and also, we hope, done really well by other humans. And so we wanted to talk today about promoting from within versus sourcing outside talent, kind of like a fresh blood, but also new expertise, more bandwidth, and one of the hard lessons we learned, sucking expertise out where you really need it at its core to promote from within, but you also increase that loyalty, all the trade-offs therein.
Yeah, that's right. And, as we built out our team, it was not like a top-down approach. It was more of a bottom-up approach. So we got what we needed just to fulfill orders. As those grew, we would need to manage those people and then get higher management and then us and so on. And even into different departments, right, like sales, lead gen, what we talked about on our previous episode. And, the temptation is always there, right? You have, say, a writer, in our case, someone doing outreach, great person. They're taking initiative. They're trying to make the product better. They are easy to work with. You get along with them, and you're like, you know what? I think this person has what it takes to do a higher role because, part of recruiting from within is you want to retain people. You want to reward their good work ethic, whatever it is.
And you even genuinely believe, like, well, this person is great at this. They will probably be great at the next. And we learned over time something called the Peter principle. And the example in the book I read was of a bookkeeper who's promoted to accountant, who's promoted to financial manager, who's promoted to director, and then as a CFO flames out and the owner is left wondering, what happened? Why did this person fall apart? Well, it turns out they were an amazing bookkeeper and shouldn't have been pulled into the upper tiers of management, should be allowed to have executed their core expertise instead.
That's 100% true. And it often looks like a very attractive prospect to just bring someone up. Greg will get into this a little bit later about actual recruiting, but it's a lot of work. And so, you can either promote from within, it would be great for team morale. You'll build a close team. You don't need to do the recruiting, yada, yada, yada. And you might find yourself in a position where that person just isn't a good fit for that, and you're back to square one. And it's not to say that people from within can't change roles. I think you might find, the key is just finding out what they genuinely are good at and want to do. So you might hire a writer, or for example, and little do you know, they actually have quite a bit of lead gen experience, and that's really their passion, and that's what they want to do. And in that case, it might be a wise move to bring them up. But I think where we ran into problems were either fulfilling a position temporarily or or kind of cajoling somebody into a position that wasn't a good fit for them, but I think human instinct is to say yes to what is perceived as a promotion. And I know we have one story where I know Greg you were in China, right, at the time?
Yeah, I was in China expecting the birth of, we're very fortunate to have 2 healthy kids in my household. And long story short, what coulda, shoulda, woulda been I really need your help for 3 months, maybe 6. Maybe there is long-term potential, but let's start with a quarterly approach here. Was long-term, jumped up several rungs in terms of title, and then it led into a really unfortunate series of events where I doubted the skill set of that person and didn't own that I convinced them that this was the right thing to do. And we learned the hard way with that person by not only promoting, but of course we love paying people what we feel they're worth. Then their pay got outside of what the role they excelled at could afford. And it took us not months, but years to correct this mistake. And I know it sounds frou-frou, but I really think a lot of this is emotional, at least when you're learning this skill. I think later we'll be critiqued for being hard asses with no emotions, but the fair critiques, have been that we haven't done the emotional work to be direct with people, in especially years past. And so last year was a real kind of like, not day of reckoning, that sounds way too serious, but it was time for us to sit down and look at each other. And
A wake-up call, right?
Oh, definitely, and get the courage to have those conversations with people like, hey, we screwed up. This isn't your fault. Now we need to figure out what to do. And unfortunately, we've done both. We've been able to salvage it in some cases and figure out how to get people back in their core expertise. And in some cases, we screwed up so royally that we're like, we don't know how to, there's no winding the clock back. We have to part ways now because we can't even afford what you're at.
Exactly, and I want to touch on that a little bit because I think it's important to realize that by setting up these existing team members for failure, you are really doing them a huge disservice. I think there's the term, what is it, golden handcuffs or something like that. You know, the tendency is to pay them highly, maybe more so than what you would get from outside talent, because you like them, you want to keep them, you want to motivate them. But what happens is with that higher pay, you're already setting them up for higher expectations for a position they were already underqualified for to begin with. And I think it leads to, and in Greg's case, we didn't do a good job of being direct. I think that could have been helpful, but it leads to a constant tension almost, which will eventually lead to a change that probably isn't good for them. So I think that's really important to keep in mind if you are considering bringing somebody up from within the team, that you're doing it for the right reasons, because it's the right thing to do for them also.
Absolutely, because like you said, human tendency to say yes, and they trust us at that point.
Yeah.
So they believed, and we believed we were doing what was right. And so I think I may have cut you off, though. It felt like you had a little more to say.
No, that's.
Yeah, and not to say there's all cons, right? We've had some great stories of elevating people into more senior positions. We had a great team meetup last year. We had a great team member leave us for an even better role somewhere, and that happens. We're always happy to celebrate people and provide recommendations, references. So there's a balancing act here. And the other element to balance then is to segue into external recruitment.
Yep.
And some of these tips should and could be applied to internal recruitment as well.
Yeah.
For just the scenarios we're talking about, avoiding some of those. But one thing that has been really interesting in our evolution is I used to pride myself and share tips on how to put up an ad as a funnel and then filter through thousands of applicants. And I have great tips for you. Well, for example, require a loom. If someone can't take a minute and a half to film a loom, I mean, your call as a hiring manager and business owner, I don't know if they're going to show up professionally to video calls on the job. I like to require a simple question that reveals their professionalism in terms of punctuation and things like that. The next layer for us, for people who can't make it through those, is a paid test. We're not huge fans of unpaid tests. I've done a ton of them in freelancing, but we pay people to do tests, and it's always worth it because every time we dodge like 60% of the bullets, right? We cut out a lot of garbage. And then one thing we've learned is probationary periods. Even if it's for a freelance gig and it sounds ridiculous, for your own doing, ramp up. Don't just onboard with 100% full steam ahead. We're diving in. Start with project-based work that expands in scope and depth, and then you end up with talent that you're sure are the right fit because you've taken a step-by-step approach.
That's right. And I think a good side benefit there is it forces you as the owner or the manager to actually sit down and assess this new recruit because it's a project-based probationary thing or something like that, right?
That's right.
So you have to make that assessment before you continue.
I will say, while a lot of that continues to apply today, is I think the right steps for us, anyhow, at our business's maturity level. One upgrade I've really liked, and granted we've only done it on the most recent of roles, so we may change our strategy. I've really liked shifting to headhunting versus advertisements. Our natural inclination is to put up an ad and see what happens. But I've instead take the role title I'm looking for, plug it into LinkedIn, filter for the open to work, or even not filter for the open to work, and poach them, because we've had great talent from our agency poached, and it's a real strategy. It's not meant to be with malintent, but it's an awesome strategy to find people who are already in the roles doing the things, and they clearly are professional because they've been in the role 2-3 years. That for me, the latest roles we fulfilled, it's a little upfront. It takes like 5 hours to find the right candidates, but then you're not working through a huge quagmire of anybody and everybody who saw your ad.
Yeah, definitely right. Sucks when it happens to us the other way around, but it's a great strategy.
That's right. So we'll keep this one short and sweet. Hope you learned something from that. Please don't poach our team. That
Yeah.
would be appreciated. And, we're always here. If you guys want to reach out on LinkedIn via email, we're Greg and Morgan at jollyseo.com.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. Thanks, everybody, for watching our 4th live episode here, and we hope to have more for you soon.
See you next time.